What's up, podcast fam? We're back with another episode. I have my dear friend Amar on today, and I'm so excited to have him on. We've been working to get this podcast going in the works here. We finally were able to sit down and do it. So, Amar, say hello. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Jacob. Thanks for having me. Hello, everybody who's taken the time to listen or watch.
Dude, I'm so pumped to have you on. We had such a weird connection on meeting with friends through festivals, and we've grown and been friendships over the year. We've done some trips, met at some other festivals without the person who introduced us. So, really
Awesome.
full circle moment for me here to just have you on the podcast. So, very excited to have you on.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. So we've met in the festival scene and met in raving, which is one thing and one side of you as a person. And then when I get to know you more, I find out you're a very successful businessman. You hit the ground running. You do a lot with many different businesses, as I've found out along the way, which I had no idea about. And something that's fascinating with me is just the day in and day out of running a business and how that operates. And I'm someone who personally like just started my LSC and is just getting into that field and that realm. So for, my first question with that side of things is how did you kind of break into doing your own thing and breaking into that business world? Because, for so many of us out there, we're doing a 9 to 5 and that's the way we were taught and raised. And then maybe you hear something, you see something, and then one day you break out. But everyone's journey is just so different with that. And I'm curious how you were like, hey, I'm doing my own thing. Was it always that way? Was it not? Give me the background here if you can.
It's definitely a little of both that it was always that way, and it was something I had to break into. I was raised in a manner that taught me to work and work and work and work. And as a kid, I hated it because I didn't get much of a real childhood. I grew up first generation immigrant, two sisters. My mom and dad were both born in the Middle East. And the only way of life that people like that, immigrant families like that, know when they come to the United States is work. I was born here, and so was my sisters, but my parents starting their lives here at middle age, it was we have to work because we're determined to make it. And what comes along with that is our kids have to work to help the family. Our kids don't get to play sports and whatnot. I did way later in life, but when I was younger, I mean, they probably broke so many child labor laws, and it just built a mentality in me that like I said, I resented growing up, but now that I'm older, I'm very grateful for it because it was a foundation that always kind of put me a little bit ahead in the business world. Like I learned how a business runs, small businesses, albeit nothing crazy, but I learned what it's like to like deal with people, manage people. It taught me people skills from a really young age because you have to learn how to deal with people, manage people, react to people if you're going to be in a business setting. And it kind of just paved the way. Fast forward, like I went to school, went to college, got my master's degree in finance and studied business. So obviously it helps to dedicate your focus of your education on what you want to do. But over the years, I dabbled in and out of being in corporate America, as well as kind of saying this isn't for me, as I'm sure lots of people do. Lots of people in their 20s, their 30s, especially, they wake up and they're like, I hate this. I don't want to go to work every day, but what other alternative do I have? And I was that person in and out. And it took a couple of things. It took uh, the ability to take a lot of chances and the ability to say, I'm going to live in my parents' house if I have to, if this doesn't go well. I'm willing to take the chance and I'm willing to sacrifice a lot and I'm willing to dedicate and be tenacious to make it. And I got to realize that there's a better chance that I'm not going to make it. And I'm willing to accept, the faults if I don't. So I got here through a long series of all those ways, like building a foundation and then dedicating, desiring to be here and then working on it.
Were you the first out of your family that kind of broke that and started doing your own thing? Was that what you were saying? You were the first one to really start, hey, I'm starting my own business. Or do you mean in the sense of just taking it to like another level in that build?
Yeah. So my parents own small businesses. Against the immigrant story, they moved here. My parents' story is one of those stories like it kind of makes you say, oh wow, that's literally the American dream. You work hard and you sacrifice and you'll get it. But they own small businesses like grocery stores and things like that over the years. So I started as a elementary school kid sweeping floors and stocking shelves.
Right.
So they own businesses, but they were kind of smaller and they're good for what my family needed, which was like to have the ability to make a living because they didn't have education. They couldn't really get hired doing too many things. They couldn't speak English. My dad bought his first store in a really rough neighborhood in Detroit before he could speak English. And he says how the stories he'll tell you about how when people used to come in and buy things, he learned how to use a cash register but couldn't speak to customers, and just kind of crazy. So yeah, they always own business, but I finally kind of I hate to say leveled up because I don't ever want to marginalize how hard my parents worked and what they did, but kind of took it to bigger businesses on larger scales than what they did. And I always had their support. They always pushed me. It's interesting. I have other family members, friends whose parents were very different. They were like, take the safe route. You have a job. Don't interview for something else. Don't leave your job and take a chance. My parents were the opposite. My dad was always pushing me, the hell with it. Take the chance. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're smart. You'll always find a way to come back. And he'd push me out of corporate America. And I'm grateful for that. I have fallen on my ass a handful of times and I've lost everything I've had more than once. So grateful to have a support system to help me through the bad times and push me to the good times.
Yeah, that support system can be everything. Like you just said, it's make or break too. Because I know so many friends and so many parents that I grew up with that exactly what you're saying are kind of like just go to college, get a good job, work the face down, work the grind,
Yeah.
move up the ladder. And not to say that you can't do that. And I think if you're a very exceptional worker, you can do that. It's definitely changed over time, but just in general, the idea, I can't think of many parents that I knew going through college stuff that were advocating for like just do your own thing. It like even my parents love them to death, but I didn't want to go to college. I
Yeah.
wanted to start working. I just wanted to start doing my own thing. And they were even just like, no, 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 reel it back in, kid, reel it back in. You got to go to college first, and then you can figure it out. And I don't hate that decision. I think I've learned a lot more out of college, if I'm going to be honest. But I
Yeah.
also, I don't want to knock college whatsoever because there are certain degrees and certain professions that require it and need it.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you have fun?
I mean, of course, who doesn't have fun?
College was the best. Yeah, I loved college. I'm not gonna lie, it was a great time.
Yeah,
Studied
great
my
time.
ass off and got good grades, but I made sure to enjoy myself.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, and everyone's got a different thing with college, like something I did that some of my friends didn't was I worked through college. I
Hey, three
because I
jobs
wanted
at
to work
once.
anyways, so it was like let me just start doing that and saving up some money that way, and that taught me a lot because I really quickly found like hey, I want to be able to work and travel and go to music events, and that's where my passion is. All right, so I still got to do the school thing, but I can work on the side to get some money and go do that when I want to, and I'm not restricted by not having money while I'm working, while I'm in college. So,
Yeah.
like you say, there's always things you can learn when you look back. Absolutely. At the time being, you might not notice them, but you can always learn them.
Yeah.
You talked about taking risk, and that's kind of stuck out to me because inherently I feel myself being very like risk averse or maybe too strategic where it's like I'll wait, I'll do this, I'll do that. But what were like I guess what I'm curious about is like what was like a catalyst where you were like, oh, I can do that risk? Were they calculated? Was it I mean, I'm sure it was calculated to an extent, but not like, again, I don't think you don't strike me as someone that would just go on a whim and do it. So what was like
Yeah.
the catalyst for you that happened?
It was honestly, I do give, as we're talking about our family, I do give my family a lot of credit for always encouraging me and supporting me and kind of being my hype team. Honestly, they're always telling me, hey, you can do anything. And you grow up hearing those kinds of things. Oh, you can do anything you want. You can be anything you want to be. And as a kid, you're like, whatever, that's just some corny things you see on movies and TV shows. But
Yeah.
honestly, God, it's the truth. And now I find myself saying that to people that are always like, hey, what do you think of this? Or I want to do that. And I always say, as funny and silly as it is, I used to dismiss that too. And now I'll be the first to preach it. It's true. And I can prove it. I'm living proof of it. But it's never going to be handed to you. There's no instant gratification. If you tell me, hey, I want to be running my own $20 million a year company, selling hats, whatever the case,
Yeah.
then you can do it. I guarantee you can do it. Are you willing to sacrifice everything for it? And literally commit your entire life towards that or not. But to answer your question, what were my catalysts? It was that honestly the confidence that I just had to come to a point where I believe like I can do anything. It's what was instilled in me, and I got to break that stigma that, oh, it's not true. It's just something people say. Like, what are the chances that I could maybe make it in the NBA? You got to be realistic somewhat.
Yeah.
Probably not so great, but when your goals are realistic goals, hey, I want to achieve this level of success or this level of fitness or this level of travel in my life, then do it. Make that your goal. Don't tell me how bad you want it. Don't ever play the victim role to me, because I'll give you zero sympathy about why other people have it and you don't. I'll say, well, what the hell did you do that makes you think you deserve it? Here's an interesting test. So one of you kind of mentioned I do kind of wear a lot of hats. One of the hats I play is I don't even know what to call it, like coach slash mentor slash consultant slash friend in all the same capacity at once.
Yeah.
Being a little bit older and having, I guess, a few successful endeavors under my belt, people come to me a lot. And it came to a point where a while ago I said, okay, I'm going to officially incorporate, start a consulting firm. Here are my rates. And they're pretty high, to be honest. Although I'll be honest, I haven't charged anybody $1 in as long as I can remember, because more importantly, I'm where I want to be. And part of that is helping people get where they want to be too. I get more satisfaction that than getting a little extra money on the side. So one of the assignments I have is somebody like you would come to me and say, I have an idea. Here's what I want. I want to start a podcast and I want to get to 1 million views a month. Any advice for me? I'll say, I don't know anything about podcasts. I don't want to know anything about podcasts. That's you. But I want you to write a few things down. And I want you to write these questions, look at them and answer them in your own time. Number one, I would say, what do you want? Don't tell me, tell yourself, what do you want? And you might say, I want to run 1 million viewer a month podcast. Then I'm going to say to you, why? Why do you want that? Did you ask yourself why, or did you just think, I want that for myself because it's what I'm supposed to want? It's what other people want. You answer that question genuinely. And don't tell me the answer. This is only for you. Why? Question 3, what are you going to do when you get it? Not if you get it. What are you going to do when you get it? What are you going to do for yourself? What are you going to do for your community? What are you going to do for the world? And then I want you to look back at those answers. Here is one of the most important questions. I'll save that one for last, actually. The 4th question I always ask is, what is the biggest hurdle in your way? Identify it now so you know what to focus on. Because so many people tell me, I want this. Okay, why? What are you doing about it? What's stopping you from getting it? They've never thought of any of those things. They just know what they want and they frustrate themselves in their lives because they don't have it. But what are they doing to work on it? Now, the most important question, there are more questions, but the most important question I always ask everyone is, what are you willing to sacrifice to get it? And now don't tell me, but I usually circle back to this. When you answer that question, you look at your answer. If your answer isn't everything, if your answer is not everything, I'm saying you don't deserve it. I'm sorry, but if that's what you want and you're not willing to sacrifice nights out with your friends, weekends away on vacation, festivals, extra time doing leisure things that you could be doing, reading development books, strategy books, marketing books, learning from podcast professionals who's written books. If you're not sacrificing all your time, money that you could be spending on taking girls out or buying fancy clothes, you're investing that into Tony Robbins seminars instead, whatever. It's about sacrifice. If you're not willing to sacrifice everything, when I bought my current biggest company now, when I gave myself this test, I remember saying to myself, I'm willing to sleep in my office if I have to. If I have to sell my house because I want to buy this company, because the mortgage on my house is going to, the foregoing the mortgage of my house and the payments of living in this home are going to help me buy that business. I will sleep in my office for a year, for 2 years if I have to. I mean, odds are I'd probably sleep in my parents' basement or something first. But
Right.
again, I was willing to, thank God I didn't need to get to that point, but I was willing to. And I wrote that down on a piece of paper. I still have it folded up. I look at it every once in a while. I read all those questions and answers back to myself just to keep myself in check.
Do you think there's something to being strategic in that sense as well? For instance, what I mean is like there's a lot of people that do have a full-time job with their income and then are slowly building something up. Is there something to that as well as like, yes, you're still devoting that time out of work, you're still giving it your all, but is there something to that like strategic ladder up, the strategic stepping stone of moving up versus some of the others, which I mean, again, there's no right or wrong answer, but some people do it the way you're talking about, where, hey, I'm gonna stay in my parents' basement and work on this and yada yada. But at the same time, I feel like some people, a big block for them is the idea of like, well, then how am I going to get money in the meantime while I'm working on this thing?
Yeah.
And how, I guess, do you see there's something to that? I should say first. That's my first question. And then two, how did you navigate that path of work and splitting time and, not getting pulled in XYZ directions, but focusing on like, this is the main one, but this other thing is providing me income currently?
Yeah. So your first question on strategy, I guess, are you asking, is it important to have a strategy or can you wing it? Is that kind of what you're asking? Or
Yeah, I
a
guess
strategy?
yes. Essentially, yeah, yeah, yeah. Is there importance to the strategy of getting out of whatever your, circumstance you're in?
Yeah. You should absolutely have a strategy because again, you think about all these people that talk about their goals and their dreams and what they want, and they know what they want. Now, all those like, why do they want it? What are they going to do when they get it?
Yeah,
That's all on them. But they know what they want. What are they doing about getting towards it? Strategy could be as simple as saying something like, grab a journal, write things down. I always encourage people to carry a journal, write in your journal all your thoughts, ideas, all kinds of things. Because an idea in your head is just an idea. But if you put that idea on paper and you look at it, it becomes a goal. And a
that's a gem.
goal is something you work on. An idea floats around in time and time goes by and your frustration builds up and your dreams pass by you and you see somebody else with your idea. You see somebody else living your dreams. And what did you do? Nothing, because it was always an idea. But when you turn an idea into a goal, then you can start to formulate a strategy. Okay, here's my goal. I'm looking at it. What do I got to get there? What are the roadblocks in getting me there? What can I be doing today that would increase my chance of getting there? What can I do tomorrow? Who can I reach out to that knows about this goal that can maybe mentor me? What resources are available about this goal that I can use right now, free at my fingertips to help me achieve this goal? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Strategy is that important. I'll do a really, really good job of firing anybody up about trying to achieve their goals. And I kind of follow up usually after I fire people up with this and tell them, I did a good job firing you up, right? Now it's up to you because 9 out of 10 people, I'll get them fired up. Like the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink, right? Nine
Yeah.
out of 10 people, I'll get them fired up. They'll be texting me an hour later. Hey, I found this seminar, Dale Carnegie course in my neighborhood. I'm going to go take it, yada, yada. But 3 days later, they're on the couch scrolling on Instagram for 45 minutes straight and I'll follow up with them like, hey, so what'd you do these past 3 days? Well, I got busy. I'm gonna start next week. Cool. Hey, I wish you the best. I genuinely do. But that's the difference between the people that get it done and the people that don't. Is you execute, man. You work on it. You don't lose focus. And I'm sorry. As I say that, I lost focus. The second part of your question was
No, you're good. Oh, the second part. I'm sorry. Yeah. Honestly, totally forgot what the second part of my question was because I was so entranced with what you were
yeah,
answering. So don't worry about it too much. But I going off of what you just said of the execution part of it, I know that's a big thing too. Dedication, execution, whatever you want to call it in that sense. But like that, the driving force behind that isn't the motivation, it's the determinism to make it to that goal. You want that goal so bad that you are willing to, even on the day you feel like absolute shit, to just keep plowing through. And
yeah,
that goes with anything. I mean, just we're talking business right now, but I mean, even if, hey, I want to start going to the gym more, it's
yeah.
like that's
Best
pure and
example
simple.
always. Yeah,
Yeah.
workout. Right. It's so many things, man. I on days, and don't get me wrong, I'm not like 100% motivated all the time. I'm not always, but hey, I sit on the couch on Instagram sometimes too and whatnot. But to be fair, I feel like it's cool. I've crushed a lot of my goals now. Not that I don't have more goals, but
Yeah.
I, I've I've kind of gotten to a point where my focus has shifted drastically than it was 10 years ago. And I'm a very happy person. I'm very grateful and blessed. But on days that you wake up and you're like, okay, what can I do today? I hate when people tell me that because that comes up a lot. Like, well, I don't really know what I could be doing. I'm like, call me and give me 3 minutes on the phone and I'll list 100 things on top of my head. Go into YouTube right now, at the very least, just type motivational speech. If you don't even know what to be doing, at least motivate your mind to get in the right mindset. Listen to one of the thousands of motivational speeches that are on YouTube for free. If that's not working and got too much anxiety, I don't know, Google search guided meditation or delta
Yeah.
waves. Go watch videos, get your mind right, calm, go to the gym and work out, get your endorphins flowing. There's a lot of things you could be doing to prep yourself for what yourself needs to be doing to crush your goals.
I think that's such a huge proponent, and that's such a reason why I started the podcast in a sense of just like talking about yourself and learning about yourself, and then someone can hear that and learn about themselves. But I think at the end of the day, it is so vital that you know yourself and what works for you rather than what works for Jimmy down the street or, Tina,
Yeah,
whoever it is. It's so important. If you're a night owl, let's say, right? And you start to see that, and you just happen to work better later into the night, it's better for you to do that than to force yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. and feel horrible the whole day. It's like, and it takes time to figure that out, but at least like in the trial and error of that, you're growing because you're starting to see the small things here and there that add up to where you become the best version of yourself putting out there. And again, this goes for anything. This goes for even the person that wants to just do their normal job and then come home and hang out. Like if you want to be the best version of yourself, figure out what it is that makes that person tick the best. If it's a glass of wine at the end of the night that helps you relax and go to bed, by all
sure.
means do it. Everyone's got their own thing. That ain't me. But just finding that way and that route of yourself and living it to your core of getting it, just again, because if you're feeling good about yourself by doing these small things that make you feel good, you're going to be able to do a lot of those tasks and hit those on days you don't want to too. It's just going
Yeah.
to help perpetuate you to continue your growth and everything. So
Yeah. Build your base, and your base starts with yourself. You're never gonna, I kind of try to word it this way. If you are only operating at 60% you, and you take that 60% you and try to go and accomplish something, what's the best that you're going to accomplish? Take the time to make yourself 100%, then go work on your goal, then go
mm,
work. So imagine, just like you said, imagine going to the gym. Imagine your goal is fitness, and you want to go to the gym, and your goal is to, I don't know, be benching 225 or whatever.
yeah.
And you're trying to work your way to that, but you go to the gym every day on 3 hours of sleep. You're telling me that you really expect to hit your goals maybe after a long time. Now imagine if you went to the gym every day on 8 hours of sleep. You're
Hmm.
going to be crushing at the gym way faster. And apply that same rule to anything in life. You want to go and crush whatever goal you have in business, life, personal. You have to become the best version of yourself before you can do that. And it's sad to say that a lot of people, I'd even go as far to say as the majority of people, are not the best version of themselves, and by no fault of their own selves. Much of the time, we're living in a time where like depression, anxiety cripples people like crazy. The
Yeah.
generational gaps are huge. The boomers versus the Gen X versus the millennials versus the Gen Z. Everyone really has come up in a different modality. And it's really sad to see that, like, Gen Z, millennials before, are living in a time where like depression rates are statistically so much higher, anxiety levels are so much more, medication use is way more rampant than it used to be. Like, why is that? What's the cause behind all that? And being somebody like you in your shoes, you're kind of coming up in a time where you almost have more weight against you, because you are no different than, I'm sorry, you're not living in a time that's any different than all of your peers who are going through whatever they're going through. You're subject to all those same external factors. So you have to overcome all these things to become a whole person. And it's sad, but it's okay to not be okay, as many people say, but it's not okay to not be working on it. And hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I've gone through depression before. I've gone through some pretty low times in my life where mentally I wasn't doing great. I went through some really tough times, and it was actually my little sister is one of the ones I have to thank for it a lot. My wonderful wife now, who wasn't my wife at the time, just being my support systems and kind of reminding me, hey, you're stronger than this. You're stronger than the things that are depressing you. You can turn things around, come out of it. And it was almost a catalyst to go into this deep hole of development, not like a dark place, but a place of, like I said, let me shut everything off and just focus on reading, seeking out more mentors, using all these resources to find out, well, first of all, what am I doing wrong? What could I be doing better? How could I be living my life better? And it kills me when people say, well, I don't even know where to begin. I'm like, there are endless free war resources at your fingertips. You have this, you can literally pick this up. You have access to every piece of information the world has ever created in a nanosecond. And you
Yeah.
tell me, I don't know where to begin. I'm like, I'm not buying it. You know,
I,
you reach out to a friend, reach out to me. I'll give you 100 resources that you can get for free right away.
yeah, it is a weird thing. The like analysis paralysis of a situation almost prevents you from progressing to that next stage. I can speak to this as of recently when I found out, like when I was in a job that I realized I wasn't enjoying and it wasn't what I thought it would be. And at first it was very like, oh my goodness, I don't my whole life is now like what I thought it was going to happen. It's done. I don't know what's going on next. And it took me some time. Some people it took longer that I knew that went through this. But once I got out of it of like, hey, whoa, we just got to figure out what the next thing is. We can't be focused on that. This is now not working. We got to focus on getting out of it and getting to the next phase and blah, blah, blah. And once I got that going, things were back to normal. But it was a weird feeling of like, oh my gosh, everything I thought I would love this. Now I don't. I hate it. What am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. And it all comes at you at once, but you can get out of it. That's the main thing is what I'm trying to say is you just got to take a deep breath, analyze it on how to get out rather than analyze what's occurring in front of you. I had a quote I heard the other day that said, if you're sad and you're depressed, it's a sign that you're off your path. So get back on your path. And
It's
that
true.
was amazing. I know I heard it and I was like, that clicked for me. You're like, why else would you be sad or depressed? It's your inner
Yeah.
soul telling you what you're doing and something that is occurring is dragging you down in a sense. And then when you get back in that zone and you're moving forward, you start to feel the energy come back and the life in you. And so just I don't know, that quote spoke to me. And I think that's yeah, I think it's very true in that sense.
Never forget, your 20s are for learning. Okay. Your
Yeah.
20s are supposed to be an experimental time in your life. You're supposed to make mistakes. You're not supposed to be where you want to be right away. You're supposed to go through hell a lot of times. And all those hell times, as much as they're hell, eventually you look back on and you're so grateful for it because they taught you things. Everything's a lesson or a blessing.
Yeah.
Everything is going to lead you where you're ultimately supposed to be. And if you're not happy, then you're still not there. Trust the process, trust the universe. If you do good and you think right, I do believe in karma. I'm a pretty spiritual person, and just because you may not be where you want to be today doesn't mean that you're not going to get there. And if people sometimes say that, well, it didn't work out, I'm like, you think this is the end? Don't be so silly.
I love that. I love the philosophical side of you, and when it comes out, just to put it out there, I love it. No, I mean I mean it. I mean it wholeheartedly. Like there's
Thanks.
so many things as I've gotten older and I read and hear that they just the philosophical things kind of speak to me a bit more. I grew up in a very religious family, go to church, and
Same.
there's nothing wrong with that. And I think there's
Yeah.
some amazing teachings in that sense as well. But then, I personally am not a religious person anymore in that sense. But as I've gotten older, the more philosophical things, the karma, the being a good person, that stuff there's definitely some truth to it. And again, I think even the church and stuff have tidbits of that in them. Like they want you to be a good person too. They don't say because good things will come they don't say it because of karma, but they have the same similar teaching.
Yeah.
And
I think most religions teach the same thing. And when people say they don't, or people weaponize religion in the name of war or whatever is going on, it's ridiculous to me. At the end of the day, most religions boil down to the same ideologies, different prophets, different messengers, even different deities trying to portray the same message. And it's so sad that billions of people around the world are literally at war fighting because of the way they receive their religion or the prophet or the messenger that they receive their religion from and how they will kill others in the name of their religion. Like, I don't think that that's what your religion is asking you to do, but
no,
it's
I
far gone.
100%. I had a I was thinking about this the other day and how God is a universal. We all can sense something, right? There's something out there, and I think God's the name we've given it. but religion has almost man-made God in a sense of doing this with this teaching, and he wants you to do this and practice this way. When I think in reality, it's he's there, he exists, he's an energy in a sense, and we're experiencing him now, we're experiencing him in the future, and he's there. And we don't have like a real term, but God's the term to use. You can say I believe in God without invoking a religion, but the
Sure.
religious has made it very man-made going forward, which brings me to the fact that I like how, so your book, Elephant Brain, we
I
were
wrote a
just
book.
yesterday, great
Yeah.
book.
Thanks.
I so
Have you checked some of it out?
I did check some of it out. I told you I would, promise you I would. And I did tell you we would talk, or you told me you want to talk about the Quantum Leap chapter specifically. And I'll be honest with you, I listened to that twice because I was like that intrigued with it. And I
Really?
really liked, speaking of just God and religion, I liked how you presented God as this being who created all things in the universe, and the experiences. But you specifically even state that, hey, this is not a religion in that one sense. And you just, yeah, and you put like exactly what we just said. Hey, some of them they got tidbits of certain things right, but I am overall everything and all the experiences you presume. I just like that. I love that. And again, I had to I listened to it twice because there's a lot of things I could take from it. That's the main reason. It was interesting, Quantum Leap. So what I want to ask with this, sorry, I'm going on off a tangent there,
Oh,
but
sure.
before we get into the chapter of Quantum Leap, I want to know a little bit about um, Elephant Brain and what called you to write the book.
Uh, so much. So Elephant Brain is my passion project. Shameless plug, guys. Um, I
No
never
such thing as a shameless plug, by the way.
I never intended to publish a book. I didn't go out and say I want to write Elephant Brain or publish this book or whatever. Creative writing is something that I've been into since literally like junior high school. I actually really remember Mrs. McGuire, eighth grade. Shout out. She's like my English teacher who really got me into writing as I was probably 13 years old. And I've just always liked to write and just creative writing. And it's varies like my writing styles and have like what you read, one particular story called The Quantum Leaps
Yeah.
is pretty similar to all the other stories in Elephant Brain, but there's wildly different stories and different things that I've written. Um, and a lot of what I write, I've always held kind of close to my heart. Not really something I've shared a whole lot, but um, I've had people in my life going through different tough times. And it's tough when you see somebody you love suffering. And it's even tougher when you feel helpless. And most of the time, we feel pretty helpless. Usually, when you have a friend going through a hard time, there's really not a lot we can do other than just be there for them, listen, be a shoulder to cry on. But to
Mhm.
actively try to do something. So once upon a time, a long time ago, I had a friend who was going through something, and I kind of was a little hesitant. I'm like, I hope this doesn't sound like a really arrogant move, but I want you to read something. I wrote something, and it might help your state of mind. I kind of feel like it might be a healing sort of story for you. So I gave it to a friend, and they kind of cried reading it, and they were really moved by it. And I realized, oh wow, maybe it had some benefit. So it just kind of happened a handful of times here and there over a long period of time. Had a friend who would go through something, and I'd think of a story or something that I wrote, and I thought maybe I'm going to offer this to them. It'd always be tough because a gift should never flatter the giver, and it's tough to like say, "Oh, here I have something for you," something that I wrote. It almost feels like it's an arrogant move, but at the same time, you just got to put it out there and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
it's a friend. They know me better than that." And one time, I was with two friends, and one of them was crying her eyes out to me and the other friend just about her struggles, and it was really sad. And my other friend had read one of my stories, and he said, "Hey, you should read her The Summit." And I gave it to her. I had my computer with me, and I said, "I'm going to email you something." And she goes, "No, read it to me right now." It was 3 a.m. We were on the front porch of an Airbnb after a concert in Virginia some years ago. And we were
Hmm.
all staying up talking and just being friends to this friend of ours. And she convinced me to read it out loud to her and our other friend that was there. And the both of them, him and her were both like in tears, and they both immediately were like, "What was that?" He had read it before, but she said, "What was that?" I was like, "It's a story that I wrote," and she goes, "You have to publish this. People need to read this." And I was like, I've kind of laughed it off, you know. And I
Yeah.
thought, haven't done a whole lot of thought ever about publishing.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Sorry about that quick interruption there. We are had some technical difficulties. We are back. So we're gonna hand it back to Amar where he was in the middle of his story. So you were telling us about how you read a portion of the book to your friend out on the porch one night, 3 a.m. in Virginia. But I'll let you
Yeah.
take it from there.
Yeah, like I said, I'd never really thought about publishing before, but these two friends of mine kind of were very persistent and pushy and saying, "You need to share this." And I said, "I've just kind of always written for the sake of writing, never with the intention of trying to get anything published or whatever." And some of my writing is years and years old. It's been sitting in notebooks and computers and whatnot. And they said, "No, you should share. The world wants to see your art. This is your art." And we kind of had a conversation about it. I remember actually randomly called a friend at 3 a.m. because she works in publishing and she's a very dear friend. And I thought she'd be an awesome person to work on something like that with. And I put all this pressure on her. I called her. She answered wide awake, like, "Hey, what's up?" I'm like, "Why are you awake?" She's, "Why are you awake?" I'm like, "I got to ask you an important question. You want to help me publish a book?" And I remember her answer was, "Fuck yeah." So I was like, "All right, I'll call you tomorrow when it's not 3 a.m." But just kind of made that decision at that time to be vulnerable, honestly. I think I had this weird conversation about how why not publish, because it's vulnerable. Like writing is the most vulnerable form of art in my, that I believe. That you can paint a picture and be an incredibly talented painter, you could write a song and whatnot, but I think writing really shows your deepest parts of your soul. A lot of other art can be left to interpretation, but when you're reading someone's writing, when it's especially like in-depth, long, drawn-out writing, you're really seeing where they're coming from, and that leaves a person really vulnerable. And I just kind of had to make a declaration: hey, if this is my art, for art to be worth anything at all, for art to be worth a damn, it has to be vulnerable. And I got to put it out there. If people hate it, if I catch hate for it, so what? If it helps one person, like my friend said it helped her, my other friend said it helped him, then I guess it was worth it. So I set out as a passion project to put my art out there. Never really set out to say, hey, I want to publish a book, be a famous author, make money from a book. None of that was ever on my mind. Still to this day, it is not at all. I just really want the art to be out there if it has a chance at helping people who may be going through tough times.
No, I
And
love
2 years after that night, Elephant Brain finally was finished.
Wow. Wow. Two
Big
years.
project. We worked on it really part time for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So
it's
all the
still
stories in there were already written. Every story was almost, I think maybe one or two were after that actually, but they were all stuff I'd written a long time ago. I just decided to pick 10 stories, same theme, put them together, make a book.
no, it's awesome. I mean, I totally agree with you in the sense of the art forms and art at its core is vulnerability. Again, different degrees in each one of them, but you're putting yourself out there. You're showing, whatever it is. I mean, it's as simple as creating content. You're putting
Yeah.
yourself out there to where
Be
everyone can
judged.
see it and judge it. And you got to kind of be okay with that. And you got to be a very centered person to be able to do that
Yeah.
because just at the end of the day, obviously, like you said, the writing is a little bit deeper, especially the style of writing and taking in these stories. So that leads us to Quantum Leap, which was the main one that
Yeah.
the main one within the book, I should say, that
The
you
book,
have.
for context, it's different short stories. So what Jacob's referring to in other context is the first story in the book.
Yes, yes. And you recommended this one to me and sent me
Yeah,
the audiobook. Thank you very much because I
sure.
do like the audio way better. I'll be totally honest and
Yeah.
on any book. It's not
If
just
anybody wants it real quick, reach out to me. I'll send it to you for free. I don't care about selling it. I just want to share. So
we'll share the one story. The book, you gotta buy the book if you want the other nine stories, people. We're gonna hook you in with the one. But
but
sorry, focusing on Quantum Leap. It was like I said, I listened to it twice. Very so there's two things I took away from it, and I'm just curious. Was your intention with Quantum Leap to discuss an eternal loop, or was it that love is the driving force of the universe?
B for sure.
B for
B.
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I know it ends on that note, but in a sense, I was
Yeah,
like, I wonder if he's trying to talk about how the energy of the universe is constantly flowing in a sense.
definitely a theme.
Yes.
But I guess to answer that question, it'd be better for me to answer to you the way I write. I don't really sit down with an idea of a story. Every story in Elephant Brain and most of my other writing, especially like my short story format, it's kind of, again, cheesy to say, but it really, really definitely comes from another place. I'll get some sort of like inspiration in like maybe I'll hear one line, I'll see one thing. Sometimes it's literally a word. Like I'll see a word in a certain context, and that word will hit me with so much inspiration that I just have to write. I'm like, grab a notebook, grab a pen, or grab my laptop, whatever I have. And it's not so much as you might think, like, okay, if you set out to write a story, you would think characters, plot, plot twist, what's going to happen. You think all this stuff out. I don't do any of that. I literally just sit down, and it's almost like I'm seeing a movie in my head, and
Mhm.
I'm just typing what I see. And it just comes out like, rapid word
Yeah.
vomit in this immense flow state. Just like, a musician might say the same, they just grab instruments and just start jamming, and it just
Right.
goes. They don't think 10 keys ahead. They just go. A lot of my, like all my writing, it's like that. It's just, and that's why it takes a while for me to write something, because I might go months without ever being inspired to write anything. If you told me right now, grab a pen, write me a story about, XYZ, I bet I couldn't do it. Put a gun to my head. I'm going to write garbage. But out of nowhere, I might be driving down the road and all of a sudden be like, whoa. And it's just something super inspirational. It always makes me like get a really emotional feeling. I always cry when I write, and that's how I know it's good, it's authentic. I like, I've kind of said before, it's not me, it's God. I'm just a messenger here. It's coming from somewhere else. It's a higher power telling a story. I'm just the one writing it down on paper.
Yeah.
So the intention of my story, so like to answer your question, was the intention to do that? There wasn't really an intention. It was like, well, I just kind of inspired to write something. And like when I wrote the first three lines of the Quantum Leaps, I had no effing idea what the last three lines were going to be or what they were going to be about. Just along the way, I just got there, and that was the story. And I was like, whoa, done. That's pretty much it. It's
Yeah.
it's it's cool.
It was a very profound story because, like I said, those were the two main elements that I took away from it. I wasn't sure which way it leaned more, but I am so intrigued on your thought process of the eternal loops in a sense, and
Yeah.
on how that plays out. Is that a thought that you've played out in your head, unrelated to the book, but just played out in your head about like we've been here, will continue to come here in different
Yeah.
forms? Is that something that you specifically like believe in and you or think about quite often, or yes?
I I like you was born and raised religious. I'm still Catholic, although sometimes I feel like other Catholics might shun me and be like, "You're not really Catholic," because real Catholics believe this, and
Mm,
they'll quote the Bible, and they'll talk about Sunday. I still go to Sunday church, not every Sunday, once in a while, maybe once a month or so. I have a
right.
very great relationship with our priest. I love the guy to death. I've never shunned away from the Catholic religion. However, once upon a time, years ago, I kind of decided to open my mind a little bit more. And it was a lot in my development phase in life where I just decided to say, let me just throw everything I've ever thought about out the window and start over from maybe a more rational point of view, or open-minded, like, let me just observe and feel and process and then decide what I want to think. So I really started to study all the world religions. I've traveled a lot around the world, like an absurd amount of countries, and that has probably been the greatest influencing factor on everything part of my life, from being how I am in business to being how I am in my writing and being how I am in my coaching, and everything. It's my inspiration from around the world.
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time in countries whose religions are very different than mine. Every major religion in the world, and even some minor religions in the world, I've spent time in their countries learning from their cultures. And I just kind of came to a point where I'm like, there is no right religion, there's no wrong religion. Religion is just the way we all connect to the same exact higher power. Do I believe God is a man in a white robe with a beard in a cloud, as the Catholic Church not exactly portrays, but kind of teaches kids in the Catholic Church? No, I don't. But I do believe in Jesus. I do believe, but I also believe Muhammad was a prophet not the Messiah. I believe David and Abraham and Judaism brought God to the world in their ways. I respect all of them. The Buddha, who I have great admiration for and perhaps agree with more than most other any religious beings who have ever been, sort of formed my belief system. I still, hey, if I have kids, I want to baptize them and teach them the Catholic way, but be very open to, as my wife says, let's let them be open to the world and kind of form their own ideas and thoughts. So in my writing, thinking of this, was there an eternal loop? Aside from all these spiritual and religious things I spent time on, I'm a huge physics nerd, huge physics nerd, man. So you want to talk about thermodynamics and love and thermodynamics? Energy is never created nor destroyed, always only converted. I believe that completely. And it's interesting. Lots of times you'll meet people, most people will say, like, how can you believe in religion? Science is black and white in your face, proofs, theories, equations. And science and religious people might say, don't believe in science. It's the devil in disguise trying to dissuade us. I'm like, I think you're all crazy. To me, they prove each other. Science and religion go hand in hand in my head. I'm
Yes.
not sure why so many people disagree, but it all makes sense. Like, so do I believe in what I wrote in the quantum leaps? A lot of it, yes. A lot of it was for the writing. I believe that we are a form of energy. And if you read any more of my book, you'll kind of get a more of another point. The a problem that we all face is, what do we fear? Mostly death. What do we fear? What's to come? We're always afraid of what might happen.
Right.
Very few people maintain a mindset of thinking backwards. Well, where am I going? Where am I going after this life? Where am I going tomorrow? Where am I going when I die? Where? What about before? Where did I come from? Where was I before I was born? Did I exist? You know, religion might say, no, you didn't exist. You were nothing. You were just boom, upon either conception or birth, you became what you are. And there was nothing before that. I
Yeah.
think that's silly. How can you believe in eternity and out of the infinite number of years or time in infinity, how could there be a beginning to it? And that beginning being your birth date or the date your parents conceived you or not. How could it not be before that? So where were we before that? What were we before that? Where are we going? So yeah, we just happen to be in our state of life now, experiencing the universe, the great sum of all things that we're not only a part of, we are, you know, the great God. That is the great God. And you know, kind of funny, as I said, you got to be vulnerable. I have caught flack from my writing from, you know, religious zealous people like, how could you say that? That's wrong. God will punish you. I'm like, hey, you know what? And I always take it as respectful as I can. I appreciate your feedback and your opinion. Thanks. I don't know
Yeah.
what else to say. I'll pray for you, you know. But yeah, my belief system is very much rooted in elephant brain. So if you read more of the stories, you'll kind of get more of an idea of how I think, and I kind of explain where most of my thought process came from. So I encourage more than anything that everybody travel, especially when you can while you're young. When don't worry about the debt that will come from it. Do it. Get out there. And the biggest question I've ever gotten, I think last month I went to my 56th country. So a lot of travel, a lot of different cultures, a lot of immersion in culture. It's awesome. And people ask like, how do you do that? How do you do that? I'm like, I don't understand that question. What do you mean, how do you do that? Like, I get it. It costs money and it takes time, but so does everything else you do. You just save up for it. It's by no means
Yeah.
a byproduct of like wealth or prosperity or success. It's I have flown to other continents for $199 on a budget airline and had a backpack full of clothes and stayed at $5 a night hostel. You can do that. You can do it right now, Jacob. There's, you
Right.
know, yeah, I got a job. Yeah, yeah. Well, you prioritize. You take time, and if you want to have those experiences, then you might put aside going to a festival or something. And
Right. It's all about the priorities there, right?
yeah,
If you want to go out and every weekend to
yeah,
the bar and spend $200 at the bar, or do you want to save up that $200 over 3 weekends and then go to Thailand? You know, you can do whatever. And neither's right or wrong, but I totally agree because I mean, I used to get that asked all the time in college. How are you going to this festival? How are you going to Chicago, New York? And I'm like, well,
what do you
I
mean?
took the $1,000 that would go to a fraternity because my parents said you're paying it yourself if you join. And I just said, I don't want to pay it. So I'll just take that money and go travel. And,
Yeah.
again, there's no right or wrong. I mean, there is no right or
Oh
wrong.
no.
If
You
you're
live your truth.
always
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I wish I could do this. It's like, well, you can't. And, I'm sure as I have that question gets old because you're like, you can do it.
Just
You
do it.
do it.
Just do it.
Do
Don't be afraid of
it.
life. Don't be
Um,
afraid.
yeah, don't be afraid. That's right. That's right. It is interesting how going back with love and fear both are driving forces in this world. And
Yeah. Which
so
one's more powerful?
often, I'm sorry,
Which one's more powerful?
I think love is, but so often and so easily is fear the driving force for so much in
Mm.
everything, even things I do. I've noticed it. I'm scared. You just see, and you don't notice it at the time, maybe, but then you look
Yeah.
back, like, ooh, I was a little terrified, or I didn't take that leap because I was nervous about what could happen. And sometimes that nervousness, or it's the opposite. Say you're nervous about something, right? And you decide to go against your nerves and you take that leap and you go do something and it ends up working out. And then you realize that nervousness, that fear was almost going to hold you back from that amazing experience that you had. And it's almost like you need to start recognizing that when you're having that moment of, oh God, I'm nervous. This is making me nervous, that you're actually on the right path. You're getting somewhere. If you cared about something and it meant something to you, that's why you're scared. Because you're scared to lose whatever that next thing is. You're scared, or it failing. You care so much about it that you're scared of it. And then the flip side is if you're so scared of it and you give into that fear, you actually do lose it. It's the opposite effect. It's like the how Star Wars plays out with Anakin. He's so scared of losing these things that he becomes the very thing that destroys them. It's very
Confession,
profound.
I've never actually seen all the Star Wars or most of them. So I've only seen a little bit of Star Wars.
Oh, sorry
Sorry.
there. I
Yeah.
nerded out on you, and I didn't mean to. No,
But
not a spoiler
to
alert.
your
Don't
point, to
think
your
too
point,
much. But
scared.
for
It's
real,
tough.
that
It's tough. Yeah. Fear is powerful, but you got to overcome it, man. You do. If you want to crush your goals, you want to live a fulfilling life, you got to learn to face your fears and just overcome them. I think I read once specifically about fear. I remember reading a whole book on overcoming fears, and it said that all fear is rooted in one ultimate fear, the fear of death. That every single thing we're afraid of
I'm writing
stems
this down.
from the fear of death. Yeah. Or it can be traced to it. And you might think, well, how about this? I'm not like, hey, I'm not, maybe I'm afraid to go approach that stranger and say hi to them. Like, why? Why are you afraid of that? Because you're afraid of the rejection. You're afraid of the humiliation. You're afraid of the pain and the suffering that will come from fear and rejection and humiliation. You're afraid that pain will lead to an everlasting illness or greater pain that will lead to a death. Everything
Yes.
it makes sense. And you have to realize, Jacob, every single time you've been afraid about something, you were wrong. You know how I know that? Because you're here. You didn't die. You're still here. Me
Yeah.
and you are having a conversation right now. You have not died, which means every fear you've had, maybe I would use the word irrational. It's okay to have been worrisome or afraid of things, but it didn't kill you. Nothing's killed you yet. You're still here. The fact that we're having this conversation tells me you've overcome every single thing life's ever thrown at you. So why are you afraid to fail at the next thing?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, it's just weird how that catalyst can take shape. And it's so much more. This is a question. Do you think it's as much of overcoming your fears, or is it as much as tapping into love? Which one
Oh,
brings you to that next level? Because the worst place you probably could be is the fear to love.
mm. The fear to love. Oh yeah, that's a bad place to be.
Because you
And
can't.
why
Yeah,
would you get to that place? Probably because you've been burned before. I
yeah.
think that the only people that are afraid to love are the ones that have maybe been burned from love before, which is a sad place. It gets most of us at some point in our lives, but we got to overcome, like we keep saying, overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, is the desire to love what it takes to overcome fear? Like if you're standing at the edge of an airplane with a parachute, what brings you to jump out of that airplane? Is it your desire to love what you think is going to come from it, the accomplishment, the adrenaline, the excitement, the enjoyment? Is that what got you to overcome the fear from not jumping out of the plane? That's a great question.
Yeah. It's very
Yeah. Fear and
it's
love.
fear and love. Yeah,
Most powerful ones. Yeah.
the two great yin and yangs of life.
Yeah. But love is where it's at, man. Everything is about love. It's the answer to every single question, Jacob. And I think that that's one of the things we've come so far away from seeing as a species. We weren't born to live the lives we are living. We're not born to focus on the things that we focus on. I'm guilty of it too. I'm no saint. I'm far from perfect, Jacob. I am with all the flaws that the rest of us, but I try to remind myself there is a greater reason and purpose for all of this. You know,
Yeah.
we weren't put here to gain followers, to put money in a bank account, have a faster car, wear shinier metal on our bodies. None of that mattered when we were put on this earth. And it seems to take up a lot of real estate in our minds, in
Yes.
most people's minds. And we got to try to come back. I don't know, is there coming back from it as a whole?
I think so. I think I'm
Yeah,
hopeful. Maybe that's naive, but I think, the powers that be, just as we were talking about fear and love, I think the powers that be like to install fear as a sense. They like you to live in fear. And I think as things develop in this world, technology, although can be scary, right? AI, whatever it is, you're worried. At the end of the day, I think it can really be used for good. It can really be used to bring us out of this day and age where someone is making burgers for $7 an hour. It can take that job, and they're going to tell you we should be scared that it's going to take that job. But what if that opens up that person to be more creative and they're more free and they get to express themselves more? Because I mean, I've worked in a restaurant. It's a pretty dull life. You just, it's you do what you got to do, of course, but it's not what you want to do, what I mean? So, yeah, I think I do. I just think it's possible that all this
If
stuff
we
can
can find our
now.
way back to love
Yeah.
as a whole, the 8 billion of us. I hope you're right. I'm not going to disagree with you because I can't. You
Right.
know, because what am I doing here if I didn't agree with you on that one?
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
ideally, ideally, what unites us is an alien race comes down, and we all immediately go, "What is that? We're all on the same page now. Whoa, whoa, whoa! We got to work together here."
Will
And
Smith, Independence Day, 1996.
right, right. Unfortunately, I don't know if I want that to happen. I'm scared of that. I got fear for that, right? So,
Inevitable. They're coming, Jacob. They're
yeah,
coming.
they're coming.
I will.
We I took us off a serious note there, but I'm going to draw us back in. I got one more question for you for my side of things, and the main theme of this podcast is how are you living yourself for every day? Bab's life, LYFE, live yourself for every day, and that's what I ask the guests here, and I'm going to ask you that too. Is how does Amar live himself for every day? How do you live yourself for every day?
What a question. You asked this question to all your guests? I got to apologize
Yes.
for not being too familiar with your podcast, I guess,
Yeah,
but
so it's
go ahead.
developed, as things
Yeah.
progress through the podcast.
Yeah.
I originally created it, Life LYFE, for my own page. I wanted to show me as a person. Just I go to festivals, I go hiking, I do this, I do that. I want to show how I'm living myself every day. The
Good.
podcast, as it's developed and as I've enjoyed doing it more, has taken on that arc of I want to ask someone every episode what that means to them. And sure, there'll be some fun episodes with friends where that person's been on. We can talk about it again briefly, but yes, it's started to develop that way. I would say probably around episodes 70, 80 is when I started to go, hey, that's going to start being the main theme here is we're going to have fun the first half, and then we're going
Yeah.
to dive into what makes you tick the second half.
The common denominator. Well, great question. I guess I would have to say, I'd have to say, what do I show up for and why? And I've come to a point in my life, years of development work, years of learning, years of earning, years of struggling, years of thriving. I have to say I have no regrets whatsoever, even though I've been through hell and I wish things might have gone a different way in the past. I have no regrets because I am happy and I love myself today. So if I would change one thing from my past, who knows where I'd be today? And if I am happy and I love myself today, then I got to be grateful for it. And I guess I still haven't answered your question. How do I show up for myself today? I think that I try to maintain this kind of mentality. Okay, like we're talking about elephant brain. As a religious person, spiritual person, science-based person, all the above, I'll say there's one thing I do believe in, and that when this life is over, which is inevitable for all of us, you're gonna die, Jacob. I'm gonna die. And it's the ultimate fear, but it's inevitable. We will all meet our maker in some way, shape, or form, whether we're standing in front of some big pearly gates or on top of a cloud or
Yeah.
some other galaxy, we will meet our maker. And let's for the sake of argument, we're gonna call the maker God. And God's gonna say to me, he's gonna say to you, he's gonna say what he said to the billions and billions of people that have been on this earth before. He's gonna say, I gave you a gift. Okay. I gave you a gift, the most valuable gift imaginable. And that gift was life. I let you go there to my place and live. What did you do with that gift? God's going to ask you that. Imagine that scenario. Okay. Because sometimes I get goosebumps thinking about it. I'm going to have to stand before God and God's going to look at me or be with me, or if God's capable of looking, whatever you want to say it. And I have to answer that question. And what am I going to say to God? What am I going to say? I spent my life, the gift you gave me, the grandest, most incredible gift imaginable, life. You gave that to me. And I did what with it? I spent it focusing on myself. I spent it building an empire of businesses. I did it spending as much time as I could partying. I did what? What answer am I going to give God? I tried to remind myself of this idea. I've written about it before, I've talked about it before. And I show up for myself with that mentality, thinking, how do I want to answer God? What is the answer I want to give? And I'll be honest, I think about it. The answer I want to give is, I did what I could, God. I did what I could that I think you wanted me to do, which was to not live for myself. Of course, we all live for ourselves. We have to make ourselves whole and be there for ourselves, learn to love ourselves. But once we've done that, once we've found a way to make ourselves whole or near whole, or in the process of doing so, we have to look around at the 8 billion gifts around us. And I might not be able to change the world. I might think it's naive to do so, but I can change my corner of the world. I can change my immediate little circle of the world. And you know what that revolves around? The other people who are living the gifts that they have. And as we said earlier in your podcast, most of those people are struggling. And hey, sometimes I struggle too, but God gave me a gift. Part of that gift is having a strong back and weight. So I show up every single day for everyone that I can in every way that I can. What that means is small things, big things, never turning my back on somebody who is struggling and suffering through something if I can be there for them. That weighs me down like you wouldn't believe. Any one of my closest friends knows that about me more than anything. Is Amar puts himself out there to the point where we worry about him. Sometimes it seems like the weight of the world is going to crush him because I have so much weight on my shoulders from other people, because I welcome it, because I open it. I never turn it away. I never say, I'm sorry, I don't have the capacity to be there for you. I've never not taken a call. I've never not been there for a friend. It's what God would want. It's what God would want me to do with my gift. The greatest thing we can all do is connect with one another. That's a fact. That's not even just my opinion. How can I say that's a fact? It's a statistical fact that people live longer that are married. People have higher cancer success rates that are in relationships and have families around them. People heal from illnesses, from broken bones, from diseases at drastically higher rates when they're part of communities, be it families, relationships, friendships. What does that tell us? It's proof that we were built this way, this crazy biological way to connect with one another. Loneliness is the greatest tragedy in the world, and so many people are suffering from it.
Yeah.
You have that gift, you have that ability to be there for somebody else. God gave you this gift and you can be there for somebody else right now. Do you know this? 1 in 4, 25%, 1 in 4 of everyone you know in the world does not have somebody that they could turn to share a problem with in their life. I want you to think about that. Think about a room full of people you know. Take 25% of them, move them to the corner of the room. Those people are so lonely, they don't have a person that they could turn to and share a problem with. That is fucking tragic. And that eats away at them, that kills them, that destroys them mentally, emotionally, physically. It makes them take the gift that God gave them and not even be able to live it to its best potential for them
Yeah.
to then be able to show up for everyone else around them. So, to answer your question, I guess, Jacob, is I try to show up thinking about that conversation I'm going to have with God and how I'm going to say, I did what you wanted me to do. And I try never to make it about me. I tried to do as much as I can to be there for everyone else in my life in every way that I could, to the capacity that I could do it. And then a little more.
Yeah. So in short, sum it up to you're living yourself so that you can be there for those that need help, those that need that extra push here and there.
Yeah.
You're doing your best every day so that you can give them that best you, and therefore you can affect them. And it's like almost like a bad thing. It's almost like a spider web where you're helping this
Yeah.
person, and then they're helping two people, and then three, and it all comes back, and it comes back
Yeah.
to you. Someone else helps you, and it almost in a sense goes back to that karma thing we were saying earlier of if you're putting good out, it's going to come back. At least that's my opinion. It's going to come back. Not, I don't mean you're doing it deliberately, but if you're genuinely being good and you mean well by helping XYZ person, that is, it's going to, the web goes and it's going around and the energy's flowing to this person, that person, and it's coming back to you this way. And it just, it's all connected in that sense. And I love that. Another reason I started this podcast was, do I enjoy it and love talking to people? Absolutely. I mean, when I come on and do an hour, I'm giddy, I'm happy, I'm enjoying it. But part of it too is I love the ability to help people. And that ability of this podcast being a mechanism or a driving force in which we can have a discussion like we've had today, where we talk business, philosophy, spirituality, and we put it in one long form that someone can listen to, and a young entrepreneur hears it and goes, I'm just having a little fear with this leap I'm about to take, but I feel motivated to go take it. Or he said something that just stuck with me about not being fearful with this, and I can take that jump. That means the world to me. When it does, because I think like your mentality with the book is my mentality with this of like, if I can just help one person per episode, we're doing
Imagine
good.
the world if we all just reached one person.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because you talk to probably three people a day generally, person at the
Sure.
coffee shop, you order at McDonald's, whatever it is. If you can like make that person smile, just that one little thing.
Goes a
I'm at,
long way.
I know like when I'm in a really good mood, right? And I go get a coffee and I'm talking to the barista and I'm laughing and I can realize I'm in a good mood. And I see her laugh and she's like, "Wait, hey, she says it first. Hey, here's your coffee. But you have a great day. Honestly, you have a great day." Like she says, you can feel the energy of
Goes
like
a
they just
long
word
way.
it
Yeah.
differently. And you're
You
like,
never know what someone's going through and how just literally holding a door open, smiling, saying hi, you don't know what that can do to a person. And why wouldn't you do it? Why
yeah.
wouldn't
And on the flip side, not to flip it back on us, but if you're having a bad day and you're not feeling good, have you ever done that where like I've done that where I hold the door and I just make that extra effort, not intentionally, I'm not doing it for me in that sense, but like I can sense I'm having a down day. I go open the door and I open it for this nice old lady and I give her a smile and she smiles back and she says, "Thank you so much. That made my day." And you're like, "Oh, no, my day
make
is
it
for
feel
me."
better? Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Free
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah, yeah, free therapy. Yeah, free therapy. No, no, I love that, and I hope that message sticks with someone today because that's certainly something that I think about and how I feel, and I love that to hear that's definitely what more of the world needs. That's a lot of love, not a lot of fear, right there.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
to go back on the
I'm
theme
gonna
three
I'm
times.
gonna flip the script on you then, Jacob, and I want to ask you a question. If we got any listeners that have made it this far without being bored off, but uh, what's the hardest part about being you, Jacob?
The hardest part about being me,
Yeah.
right off the bat, what comes to mind is dealing with the internal dialogue. I have a lot of internal dialogue, and I assess things and overthink things to maybe where I need to be a bit more go with the flow in a sense, but I'm very much a like analyze this and oh, I'm feeling this and uh
Overthink.
yeah, overthinking. Yeah. So the internal dialogue of overthinking things, yes, very much so. That would be yeah, the hardest part.
What are you doing to deal with that? What are you doing to get better about that?
uh great question because I'm not sure exactly what I should be doing to do that. A lot of the times, sometimes it's, hey, I need to not, I just need to, again, I just need to kind of go with the flow a bit more. Um, that's the main thing I think for me, because I'll get into a thing of like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm not doing this. And sometimes I need to just take a moment and breathe and go, hey, you've gotten this far and you've accomplished a good amount of things. Keep it up.
So keep working on it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Appreciate you throwing that question back at me right here. I love it.
I have two dogs next to me. Hi, Buddha, who are growling because they want to eat their dinner now.
They're
So
itching to go. Well, hey, I won't hold you any longer. We've done probably an hour or so. So, Amar, thank you so, so much for coming on, taking time out of your day.
thank
I
you for
love
having
having you
me.
on.
Look, say hi, Buddha.
Oh, yeah. Show us the dogs before we head out.
Buddha, Lulu, Lulu, say
Oh,
hi.
hello.
Now they're camera shy now.
Yeah, now that's one way to get them away when they're annoying you. You show the camera and they're gone.
Yeah,
Um, but again, thank you so much for coming on. I absolutely loved our conversation and how we were able to flow from business to
yeah.
spirituality,
Hey,
philosophy.
thank you so much for having me. All the best in the Jacob Life podcast. 1 million viewers a month coming soon.
Yes, it'll come soon.
Yeah,
Um, with that being
appreciate you.
said, goodbye, everybody. Peace.
All right, sending love.